to do the same. Together, we can save lives.
This is Rogers TV.
I'm excited to introduce this week's guest. She's Tela Verrelli, and she works with Nutrition RX here in London, which is a privately owned company owned by Jennifer Brocksterman. Now, we all know that what we eat is so important, our nutritional strategies that we should incorporate into place. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know, and we know for a fact it is so important for the years of menopause. So I'm really excited, wanted to make sure we had somebody in the world of nutrition on the show to give their thoughts. Tela is, as I said, a registered dietitian, and she's passionate about supporting women through many stages of life, prenatal to postnatal, as well as through the changes that come with menopause, which are very significant. She also helps with general nutrition as well, general eating, managing chronic diseases, as well as sports nutrition, and she uses a lot of habit-based counseling there at Nutrition RX. Thank you so much for being here today. So I thought we'd start the discussion with general overview on menopause. It's a time of life that so many women go through. It can be extremely challenging for some, and there seems to be no cookie cutter way about it. There's not one size fits all. What do you have to say about that? Let's start with that first.
Yeah, I think that it's a really unique experience for everybody, and the severity is different from symptom to symptom, the types of symptoms they get. So it's almost like we're in a time where things are like unique for everyone and different for everyone, and you can still relate, So some of the things are like everybody's estrogen levels are gonna go down, right? But maybe they're hot flashes. Sometimes people have different, experiences with that, or maybe it's at night or it's during the day or something like that, So I think that it's a really interesting experience, but also a time to really reflect. Lots of body changes are happening, being more at risk for some conditions like osteoporosis and so forth. So a lot of things may be happening in your life, whether it is naturally occurring or whether it is, because maybe there's been a hysterectomy or something like that. So lots of things that could kind of go in the background of why it's happening, what's happening, and how we're going to feel about it. I think it's a really unique experience, woman to woman.
You're right. You're right. You're very right. Yeah. That's what I've been hearing. Now, I have my reasons for being very interested in women's health. And now as I've aged in menopause, having reached the age, not many people knew that, but I'm there. So I do have my reasons, and I've worked with women for so long now that I've heard their stories and I've heard what their challenges are as well. What is the reason that, or are there many reasons that you're interested in women's health as well and menopause?
Yeah, I think part of the reason why I'm really interested in women's health is because there are just so many things that you as a woman could do to support your health, whether it's right from a child, whether it is you're planning for pregnancy, during pregnancy and after, and up until around 20 years, where our bone mass is like at its peak and our muscle masses are at its peak, right? That's right. So even onwards, right, we are at this point now where our estrogen drops, and now we're at a different stage in our life where now we have other complications, other things may be going on in the background. And I like this variability of how women's health can kind of change. I like how there's things that we do know about it, and there's lots of things that we don't know about it. So it's really interesting to work with women and all the things that they might face in their life. And I like supporting them. And I think that, taking it one day at a time it's how it's been. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So we are what we eat, and really what we eat nourishes our body and our mind. So it's extremely important that we start the conversation on that today with in connection with menopause. There's 4 areas you and I were talking recently, and the 4 areas that we thought we would touch on are body changes, osteoporosis, cardiovascular health, which I was very interested to read an article this morning of a study that's been done on women and how really only about 7% of women get the exercise that is required to help them through the menopausal stages. And lastly, digestive health.
So I think part of it is understanding what's really happening in our bodies. So at the time, at least from an aging perspective, we actually gain weight as we age, and that's just our body's ability to work through things. And part of it, at least in the from menopause, is estrogen plays a huge role in that adipose tissue breakdown. So that's our fat mass breakdown. It also plays a huge role in just general health, right? So our brain, our organs, our kidneys, and so forth all have, relationship with utilizing estrogen for something. And so especially with our weight, we end up relying a little bit more on our adipose tissue to produce estrogen for things in our bodies when we start to lose it from, our natural, sense of where it's produced. And so when you think about it, we're having this change, this decline in estrogens in our body, and our bodies respond by increasing our fat mass. So we actually have more fat mass now in our body as we age, but also we lose muscle mass. And unfortunately, that body composition change can have an impact on our health in general. So being aware that maybe, we might be experiencing some weight gain, but we're actually experiencing body composition changes where our muscle mass is going down along with our function, as well as increase in fat mass and even increase around our midsection in general. So lots of things in the background are happening that really aren't in necessarily our control. It's part of this physiology of aging in general. And so I think some of the things that we could do is really focus on the quality of our nutrition and getting the variety of foods that we need in a day. For instance, having a variety in fruits and vegetables, you're getting different antioxidants, you're getting different vitamins, different minerals based off even the color of the vegetables or fruit. So when we start to choose those, we're increasing that nutrients that we need and getting enough of them in a day. Similarly with having enough protein, right? That can help not only with keeping us full for a long period of time, but it helps us prevent losing that muscle mass altogether. And that is in itself, if we are naturally losing it as we age, we are losing that strength and we're more at risk for falls, more at risk for fractures. And that could be scary. So having some of that in our diet, making sure we're getting at maybe breakfast, lunch, and dinner, for instance, is allowing us to get enough. So we're thinking about that quality of our nutrition, those lean proteins, those plant-based proteins. Other foods have proteins that maybe we don't think about, like for example, peanut butter, right? That is a little bit of protein in it too. So getting those variety of fruits and vegetables, getting that protein in, but also I think getting quality carbohydrates. We're on the go all the time, and oftentimes we're choosing the convenience. And when we choose convenience, most times they're processed foods. And so through processing, we lose quite a bit of nutrients. And when we choose, for instance, whole grain foods, those are a little bit less processed or not processed at all. And that's going to give us more of that fiber, which helps for our digestive system. But it also has vitamins and minerals and those other things that really do support our immune system, support our skin, our health, and even just in general support our weight. So having that balance of all these things, along with like healthy fats, like choosing like olive oil, those sorts of things, can really make a big difference on how our body responds to maybe inflammation going on in it, how our body responds to the environment, because we're getting the nourishment that we need. And it's funny enough, I feel like a lot of times women are in this, or anybody for that matter, are in this mindset where we want to kind of think about portions, think about amounts. I don't know if you've ever been in that position or, kind of know what I'm referring to when I say, So in that situation, oftentimes it's really just being mindful or being more mindful of you enjoying your meal, thinking about when maybe you're full, thinking about when you're really hungry, and spacing those meals apart can really be a big, help to thinking about how much maybe your body needs, and knowing that person to person, that's really going to be different.
So what do you have to say about, in particular then, I know you've touched on it, but osteoporosis and menopause?
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing in general, osteoporosis, given the fact that estrogen plays a really big role in our bone development, a really huge role in just maintaining and preventing bone loss. And so because it plays such a big role, when we lose that estrogen as, we go through this menopause, in general, we are more at risk for fractures, for falls, and that could, of course, be detrimental to just our movement, our quality of life. And so some of the things that I think about when I think about estrogen is that prevention, right?
Yes.
But also part of it is knowing that estrogen helps us absorb some nutrients. And so we're not only losing that, its regular function, we're losing its ability to absorb certain nutrients like vitamin D. And so vitamin D, magnesium, calcium, and phosphorus, these are really important key nutrients, along with many others that play an important role in, bone development, as well as keeping your bones strong. And so one of the kind of ways that I like to think about it is adding those key nutrients through a variety of our foods. So getting enough of a variety can kind of take the legwork out of thinking about, okay, am I getting vitamin D? Am I getting calcium? It kind of takes the thought out of it when we have that variety. But some of the food sources, I still like to, be mindful here and there of those foods. So for instance, magnesium, those you're going to find in your whole grains, seeds, and even soy. So soy is one of those foods where a lot of these nutrients that I've just mentioned, soy has those nutrients. The other thing is calcium. So calcium, of course, we know we get from our dairy products. And that's another food that really does have all of these key nutrients I've mentioned. But, it's not for everyone, right? So dairy products could be an example of some calcium-rich foods. So can kale. So can kidney beans, as an instance, or even soy are going to have those key nutrients. Vitamin D is one of those foods that we don't actually have a whole lot of foods that have a high amount of vitamin D. We actually get most of it from our sun. But unfortunately, in North America at least, in the winter months, we don't have that ability to absorb or synthesize vitamin D the way we would maybe in a summer month. So oftentimes we suggest, maybe a vitamin D3 supplement. But in reality, some of the foods that you can take in is going to be your milks, so dairy products. It's going to be your salmon, your egg yolks, but maybe mushrooms. But otherwise, there's really not a whole lot of sources. So trying your best to get those in is going to be really important. And lastly, phosphorus. That's another nutrient that's really important as well. And with this nutrient, we can get that from our seafood and our whole grains too. So there's a lot of overlap, right? When you're choosing maybe more whole grain foods, plant-based foods, so maybe like vegetables or fruits or something like that, we are, somewhat meeting those needs through that, but it's also keeping in mind that variety.
Going from there then, knowing that cardiovascular concern is of such importance with these years, give us some thoughts on cardiovascular health.
Yeah. So unfortunately, cardiovascular health, I guess it kind of plays a role also in our, changes in body composition, right? So part of it's related to that because of that estrogen effect, but also it's partly related to that decline in estrogen in general, resulting in our body's inability to utilize nutrients the same way and metabolize them the same way. So there's a lot of things going on in the background that might result in, issues with our cardiovascular health. And in fact, it's actually one of the leading causes of death, unfortunately, in women of menopause age, right?
Yes.
So it is a big thing that can, when we start to think about our nutrition, can play a huge role in how we, I guess, prevent and monitor and, think about our longevity and what we want to get out of our nutrition. And so some of the things that come to mind about nutrition strategies is that variety. So I know it's kind of like that variety, but in reality, all of our foods provide different sources of different nutrients, right? So when we get enough fruits and vegetables, for instance, we get enough fiber. Same with whole grains, same with nuts and seeds. Fiber is one of those things that can help, at least the soluble fiber, can help with binding to our cholesterol in our gut. So we eat foods that contain cholesterol. It actually binds to our cholesterol and can help prevent cardiovascular disease and so forth because it binds to that, and it helps with, in general, high cholesterol. So imagine we're consuming more of those soluble fibers, more of those high fiber food sources. What does that look like, right? And so some of those are maybe avocados, oats, Avocado's a good one. Oats, maybe even it's different grains. Whole grains are going to have some of these as well. Fruits and vegetables are going to have that insoluble fiber, the one that really helps our digestive system in general. So yeah, definitely those things. But I think managing stress is one of those big ones as well.
Yes.
Cortisol is one of those hormones that when it's elevated, we're in this conservation mode. So when we're conserving all of the nutrients that we're eating, we're not necessarily utilizing them, we're storing them.
That's right.
And then that, comes back to those body changes. And overall, those body changes around, our midsection, puts more of a strain on our health as well, especially our heart. So lots of things kind of going on in the background, managing stress, getting good nutrition in, even getting enough sleep can be a really important thing as well. Monitoring your intake, for instance, like alcohol or something like that. There's no, right way of when I should have it, how much I should really have, from an individual perspective. But excess energy in a day without utilizing it, maybe that's because of the busyness that we have in our lives. All those sorts of things can really, make a big difference.
Hi everyone, my name's Ranger M, and I work at Catfish Creek Conservation Authority. I'm the community outreach technician, and that means I do a lot of this, chatting about all things nature and conservation with kids, adults, teachers, everyone. I love to knowledge share, and that's just what I'm going to do with you. So come on, let's go learn with Ranger M.
I came here after a war in 1990 from Kuwait-Iran war. And I came personally here in my family, or part of my family, as a refugee myself. And we were very fortunate. This country gave us a lot, gave us basically everything, peace, a life. Because of that, I decide to give at least something to this country. I decide to sacrifice my life to this country, to whatever she gave us. Be firm, be friendly, be fair. That's basically the Canadian Armed Force what gave me. It's a different life.
Do you have something to share? Let everyone know about your next meeting, your need for volunteers, or your fundraising event on the Rogers TV Community Billboard. Send us your words and we'll bring them to life on Rogers TV and rogerstv.com. When it's time to spread the word, go to rogerstv.com to add your announcement to the Community Billboard.
Bonjour. Hello, my name is Heather Cabral, and I'm the new host of What's Up London. I'm excited to meet new people and share all the interesting and fun events that are going to be happening around our community. Please tune in on Mondays to What's Up London, only on Rogers. We'll see you then.
You're watching Rogers TV.
Again, when we chatted the other day, I mean, really, we've got to bring symptoms into the conversation here because nutrition can affect them positively, negatively. There's an endless list, it seems, of what women experience going through this. However, we thought we'd touch on the three that seem to be talked about an awful lot or brought up an awful lot. And the one was hot flashes. We can't not talk about hot flashes, sleeplessness, and then anxiety, mood. The mood changes that happen and what we can possibly do. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so that's a really, great one because that's probably one of the most common symptoms that menopausal women pre, post, during are experiencing. And part of it from like a body perspective, really what's happening is that we have an area in our brain called the hypothalamus, and this area of our brain regulates temperature. And so when estrogen levels aren't high, it gets confused and it doesn't know what to do. So it raises our body temperature and we feel a sensation of, hot flashes. So part of it is almost a physiological response where we don't have a lot of control over. So some people do experience it. Some people don't, and there's a few hypothetical reasons that maybe why that is. And part of it is because of some people are better at producing estrogen from their adipose tissue. And so they can kind of mitigate that loss of estrogen through producing it through other organs, of course, or other body parts in general. And so some people are better at producing it, kind of mitigating those effects, but other people aren't. And so some research is actually investigating, looking at, triggers to hot flashes and soy as one of those foods that might, prevent those in general. So some of the triggers that might result in, a hot flash in that moment of time for an individual might be stress, might be excess weight even, might be a large meal, consuming a large meal, having intense exercise at one point in time. So even alcohol, caffeine, or spicy foods, some of these things are triggers that a lot of people don't know. So it kind of comes back to doing that food and mood journal again, getting a sense of when am I having these hot flashes? Did I just eat something that might have triggered it? Or is my stress really high? And this is something that's triggering it. So a lot of research is looking at that, but also soy, like I mentioned. And the thing about soy is that there's lots of research in this area, but the evidence is not conclusive kind of to say whether or not it's beneficial at this time. Yes. And so part of it is that if you think about who experiences hot flashes and who doesn't, or at least severity of these symptoms, a lot of the research is looking how women of Asian descent actually experience less hot flashes more so than North American women, and less severity of hot flashes. And they looked into why that might be. And it's possible that it could be related to how much soy or foods that they take in that have phytoestrogens or isoflavins. So they think that because of the soy, which oftentimes Asian individuals or women of Asian descent consume more soy than North American women, they've really investigated whether or not soy, which has isoflavones, which is a phytoestrogen. So phytoestrogens are basically a plant-derived estrogen that has a hormone effect in our bodies. So it's from a plant, but can have this hormone effect just like estrogen in our bodies. And with that being said, they have investigated whether or not this can relieve hot flashes or not. So for some women it does, and for some women it doesn't. For instance, women of Asian descent, they do see that benefit, but also it's considering a couple other things, and that is for a long duration of time, you might need to consume soy or those isoflavones to have that positive effect on our hot flashes. The other thing is even a dose. So we might need a lot to kind of consume over a period of time to have that effect. And even our digestive system, woman to woman, we might have a different ability to digest the isoflavones from the phytoestrogens from the soy product or soy food. And we don't produce that active form of estrogen that has that effect in our body. So there's a couple things kind of playing in a role in the background that might affect whether or not soy can, provide that benefit to us. So long exposure, we might see a benefit maybe 1 to 2 months, or it might take years to see a benefit. You might have to consume a certain amount of soy in a day, and we just don't know what that amount is quite yet, along with how we can digest it and how we can absorb it and utilize that phytoestrogen. So lots of things kind of in the background for that. But the other piece is, how like other pieces for soy, like there may or may not be a benefit. Some of it's just trial and error and knowing whether or not it's right for you. And what I mean by that is for some people, they might be allergic to soy. Soy is a common food allergen. Right?
That's right.
The other piece of it too is that for women who are at risk of estrogen-prone cancers like ovarian and breast cancer, those foods could, have an effect on their bodies differently than other women. And so being really mindful not to consume too much at the end of the day. So soy might be something that women could look into and work with a practitioner to say, is this beneficial for me? Can I use it? Will it help me, right? From woman to woman. So I would say for women who are in that position, I would say really focusing on the quality of your nutrition, but also those triggers that I've mentioned. So identifying, are there any of these triggers that might be, related to me? Could be medications that might trigger my hot flash, could be that large meal that you have. So really being mindful of that and doing maybe a food and symptom journal, that might be helpful. I think even going back to those hot flashes, sometimes those happen at night for people. So if that sleeplessness could be related to something like that, monitoring and looking at those triggers. The other things in general, when we consume a lot of caffeine, that can keep us awake at night, even if it's not before sleep, or have us, disrupt our sleep cycles. Similarly with having a lot of alcohol, our body doesn't metabolize it all that well as we age, and so it's staying in our bodies for it to do a lot of things and keep us awake, right? So being mindful of how much alcohol we have maybe at night before we sleep, or thinking of how much exercise, or if we've just eaten before bed, our body has to focus on digesting our food before we sleep as well. So I guess being mindful of those things would be, important, but also sleep hygiene, right?
Yeah, very important.
Like preparing for sleep is going to be really important overall too. So I would say for women who are in that position, I would say really focusing on the quality of your nutrition, but also those triggers that I've mentioned. So identifying, are there any of these triggers that might be, related to me? Could be medications that might trigger my hot flash, could be that large meal that you have. So really being mindful of that and doing maybe a food and symptom journal, that might be helpful. So mood changes and, in general, like brain fog and all these sorts of things, there could be a variety of whether or not it's a result of low estrogen, but maybe there's just so many things going on in our life, right? For women who might have this natural menopause, they might be in the stage of maybe an empty nest, right? All their kids are leaving the home, or they might just be in a position where work is really stressful and they need a change. And there's these other things that are causing these stressors, causing this anxiety, but that doesn't mean it's not manageable. So I think one of the things from a nutrition perspective is having that quality, having that variety, having enough food in our day. So enough of those grains or carbohydrates to fuel our brain, right? To fuel our bodies, enough of those healthy fats to fuel our energy throughout the day. And, just getting enough is sometimes often, on the back burner. We're so busy, we're on the go that we're not really thinking about it. And hence, like our appetite, our ability to recognize when we're hungry kind of diminishes too. So almost we have to think about, okay, sit down. Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Do I need something to fuel me throughout the day? Like some nutrients that kind of come to my mind is omega-3s. Omega-3s are important, of course, for brain function, but just in general for inflammation that might be going on in our bodies. And so some of those might be like the foods that you might consume might be like more fatty fish like salmon or even some tuna, might be flax seeds or omega or walnuts, for instance, even hemp hearts or hemp seeds. Those are good ones too. Yeah. So even just getting those, once or twice a day might make a big difference on how you're feeling in your mood. But vitamin D, that's another one. I'm sure many of you know that connection between mental health and vitamin D, and that connection around, those winter months, we have those blues. And we don't have that much vitamin D in our system for many of us. And so having enough of those foods, but also getting, enough protected sun exposure as we can, that's going to be really big just for our mood and for our overall health for sure.
Do you have any other tips for women going through the menopausal journey? And again, it can be them thinking about it. It can be them if they're in peri, whether they're actually in menopause or post-menopause, somewhere on that journey. Give us some more tips about that if you would.
No, absolutely. And some of the things that come to mind, and I guess it's, it's nutrition because it's all connected, but it's self-compassion and body acceptance. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we are in this position where our body's changing, our life is changing, something's changing, right? And we have things that we can't control and things that we can control. And sometimes when we view our bodies as a friend or an ally, we kind of take a step back from that judgment and that shame about the changes that are going on. We can almost be more free of, it could be a really freeing time for many women when we look at things from a self-compassion standpoint. saying that it's okay to kind of make these changes. These changes are happening to my body. It's okay. And what can I do to make, things at peace? What can I do to make, myself feel good, while I'm going through changes in my life, but also while in general to make every last bit count. That's right. And so part of it is that self-compassion, and part of it's just, almost accepting that our hair is going to change. It's going to change color, right? We are going to gain a little bit of weight, and almost reflecting with that self-compassion and being mindful of that can be a really big win for a lot of women. It can be really freeing. This makes me think of also the circles of control. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but the idea of what we can control, what we can't control, and maybe there's some things that we kind of have a little bit control over. And so some of those things that come to mind is, things we can't control is that weight, that change in hair. We can't control that because that's going to happen. That decline in estrogen and those effects that do happen on the body as a result, that is going to inevitably happen. But some things that are somewhat in our control is a little bit of our environment, right? Where we live, how we live, even maybe, what we eat, and some of our control is, or maybe our schedule of a day-to-day. But the things we absolutely have control over is what we eat. It is, what we believe in, our mindset, our actions, our thoughts. We have some control or control in general over these things. How much sleep we get, how much exercise we get. And so when we reframe our thinking more so about what we can control, that could also be freeing for a lot of women, and also give that empowerment and to kind of make a change. So these are things you could change today because they're in your control. You have that capacity to do that. And with that self-compassion and with that, knowing what things are in your control and what you can do can really help, a lot of people.
So something near and dear to my heart with much of what I do is actually bringing younger women into the conversation, because I think even though they feel they're very young and maybe this isn't even on their radar at this point, it is so important to think about, because what we do when we're a young woman will benefit us when we're an older woman. And although the last 25 years seem to have just gone by so fast, personally for me, there were things that I had put into place as a young woman, which I'm really hoping benefit me now. What would you say, what can you speak to with regards to that, to get women thinking at a young age? What's one thing that they could really start thinking about now?
Oh, there's just so many things, right? We could do, and that's part of it, right? Is, picking maybe a couple things that really what you could work on now. And the first thing that kind of comes to mind is mindset. Mindset is one of those just foundations for making change in general and building habits that really can, sustain you for forever. And the mindset analogy that I often use with actually, Jennifer Brockstman, she's a dietitian who taught me this, and fantastic. And I'm so grateful to know this, because the three words that come to my mind are curious, kind, and honest. And it's kind of like a mindset change. And what I mean by that is when we start to be curious about what's going on in our life with a really kind look on it. And so when we're curious about what's going on in my life, what's wrong with this situation, or what's happening in the situation, that's maybe resulting in X, Y, and Z, right? When we're really curious about what's going on and being kind. And what I mean by this is, for instance, if you're in a position where you said, okay, I am so exhausted today because I'm horrible and I didn't sleep last night. Yeah, I didn't sleep. I went to bed really late and I feel horrible about it. And if we're in that situation where we're thinking and saying these things, we're coming with a judgment type of view on it. But if we reframe it and come in with a mindset of kindness and curiosity, you're asking yourself, why am I exhausted? Well, actually, I'm exhausted because I didn't sleep last night, but this is because this is the only time I have to have self-care for myself, the only time I have for just me. And so when you think about it, that is a lot kinder of, a view on saying, hey, this is my situation. And if I'm being really honest with myself and kind to myself, that is a good look on, what's going on. And so honesty is that other piece of it. when we're curious about what's going on, when we're kind to ourselves, when things, aren't perfect and things happen, but when we're honest with ourselves, this is when we see that maybe what is our solution evolves over time. So for instance, maybe as a younger woman, what works for you right now may not work for you 20 years from now, vice versa. What works for you right now as an older woman, maybe it's your glass of wine at the end of the night before you go to bed, and that's kind of like your distressor. Maybe that just won't work for you, and it did when it was, younger, while you were younger and way back when, right? So some of the things about being honest with ourselves is knowing that things evolve, knowing that our solutions evolve. So I think when it comes to this curious, kind, and honest self, that when we start to look at our situations and things that are going on in our life with this mindset, it can make a huge difference on how we approach things and how we feel, right? With less judgment, less guilt. Yeah, I definitely think that focusing on maybe just the quality of our nutrition in the sense of bone health. So having enough vitamin D, having enough calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, those sorts of things can be really important for just getting them, for that support. So during our 20s, during that time, our muscle mass and bone mass, this is when they peak. So during this period of time is when it's really important to make sure that we have done our efforts as best as we can. So getting those food sources of that calcium, vitamin D, and so forth, but also exercise. Yes. Exercise is going to be really important for maintaining our bone health too, and maintaining just a weight that our bodies feel the best at. So there's lots of things, I guess, from a nutrition perspective that you can do, but I think starting there would be a really good start.
You've offered some really wonderful, thought-provoking topics today, as well as some great pieces of advice. What's one final piece of advice that you'll leave with today to offer those that have been watching?
I think one of the most important things from here is to if you're curious or interested about your nutrition, is working with maybe a dietitian, a registered dietitian, or a healthcare practitioner, someone who specializes in this area that can help support you through these changes and individualizing it. So for instance, some of the things that we do is we work with women who, helping them understand what's in their circle of control, helping them understand what these triggers are in their life that maybe relates to their symptoms, or can help them prevent osteoporosis and so forth. So working with a client, working with a dietitian or a nutrition expert one-on-one is going to be kind of that next step of how do we individualize your nutrition and make it meaningful or more meaningful for you.
And I'm excited to be the new host of LDN ONT TV. Join me and my guests as we discuss the topics trending here in London, Ontario. Tune in Thursdays at 6:30 only on Rogers TV.
In May 1870, fires raged along the Saguenay River for more than 150 kilometers, destroying land and lives. One family survived by dousing themselves all night against the searing heat. one family among the thousands whose resourcefulness and courage shaped the character of this land.
Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m., it's the RTV quiz. Giovanni Petiti hosts a weekly trivia competition that lets you play from the comfort of your couch. Play along at home and challenge your friends. And don't forget to follow along on social media. Let us know who's top of trivia, and you can find yourself featured on a future episode.
Are you kidding me, folks?
The RTV quiz, Wednesday nights at 7:30 p.m. on Rogers TV or at rogerstv.com/RTV quiz.
This is Rogers TV.
So that's been a lot of great information with Tela, and I am again going to introduce my wonderful guests who are going to help us with the conversation further. Alison Blackshaw, again, thank you for being here. Alison is an investment advisor with RBC Wealth Management, so thank you. And then Wanda Davis, Elements of Flow is who you are, and you're a personal growth coach and speaker and author as well. So thank you for returning.
Yeah, grateful to be here.
Thank you. So, I mean, when it comes to nutrition, we could, I think, have episodes for the whole year just on this topic alone. So we're really going to scratch the surface. But I'll go over, perhaps we'll discuss maybe what has helped, what hasn't helped. Let's start with symptoms. Have you found, we'll start with you first, Alison, this time. Have you found that there's been anything when it comes to hot flashes that has helped with the actual symptoms when it comes to nutrition?
So would I say anything helped my hot flashes? No, in terms of there was nothing that I ate that particularly gave any relief. Yes. But I will say that it was so acute whenever I would have a coffee or alcohol. That moments afterwards, I'd have a hot flash. So it became, which I think is sort of the universe's cruel joke, right?
I totally agree with you. I totally agree.
Because sometimes you just need a drink.
That's right.
But it became sort of a conscious decision then. Okay, if I'm going to have this drink, I know that it's going to exacerbate my hot flashes. That's just the way it's going to be. I would go a week without having any alcohol at all and absolutely see the difference.
Yes.
So it's a choice now.
And I love that you say that about the whole thing, because really so much what I'm learning is so much about menopause is actually a lot is to do with mindfulness. Doesn't mean by being mindful we're going to get rid of everything, but it really is that awareness of what's going on inside, what we can do, the choices we make. Very important. So how about you? Have you found that there's been anything to help or hinder or?
Yeah, well, I guess it's more on the hinder part as well. Alcohol is definitely something that can trigger different symptoms going on. Yeah. Probably caffeine might be another one as well. I found I was able to give up caffeine, except for chocolate. We still had to have chocolate, but but really a lot of the things, I think it was more about that time where I was starting to have symptoms that I also became that much more aware of leading a more healthy lifestyle. Yeah. So that was where, you didn't have as much junk food, no processed food in the house, really trying to eat more just a healthy, nutritional diet. That's right. And really watching what you eat, how much you eat, because it just seems certain things, like, of course, eating later at night. Yeah. Just uncomfortable, can't sleep type of thing. How is it related to menopause? Well, I probably could have done that when I was in my teens, 20s. Maybe I can't now. So you never know exactly how it might be related. That's right. So,
and knowing that sleeplessness can be such a big part of menopause as well. Whatever we can do to tweak our nutrition or our overall habits.
Yeah,
really.
And there's also the bloatedness sometimes. You don't know how that is related to menopause. So you really do be more aware of just trying to avoid those types of symptoms.
That's right. No, it's very, very true. So we know with osteoporosis, it can become a problem with women as we age. We have to be very careful how much calcium we're getting, keep those bones strong, as well as our workouts, things like that. Have you found that when it comes to us, is there any any thought of osteoporosis happening with you, or have you been very aware of what you're eating when it comes to calcium and vitamin D and so many more things?
Vitamin D, absolutely. So I do make sure. I actually, when my doctor was doing just, a run-of-the-mill blood work on me, she found that I was low in vitamin D. So for quite a few years, I've been taking a vitamin D supplement. I'm also vegetarian, so I try to make sure that there are certain vitamins that I include as supplements, although I do try to get as much as I can naturally. I'm not a big supplement taker, but recognizing there are some that I'm probably getting. But when it comes to calcium, no, I probably should be much more mindful of how much calcium I'm not taking in and how much I should be. Weight training, it has most of the time been important for me. Fitness in general has always been important, so I'm hoping that will sort of help.
That's right.
With bone to end. And actually, I am a runner, so research has shown now, contrary to what a lot of people believe or have believed in the past, running actually is good for the bones.
That's right.
So
interesting.
So I'm hoping that will help as well. But from a dietary standpoint, I probably should be more mindful when it comes to calcium.
And that's what I love about doing this whole show is there's probably you're not going to be the only person out there thinking of that. The only reason I take a medication which they found over the years could cause osteoporosis, and so I've been having scans for a while, which led to, oh, you need more calcium, and so that's what caused me to. But mine has definitely, there's been a difference in the calcium intake and how much I'm actually getting into my system as I'm aging, but I think when it comes to vitamin D, all of these things that maybe some people listening had no idea about, and it might make them look into it further, speak to their doctor, off they go, and try and get more of that. And I think keeping things natural in the diet. I mean, supplements, I'm not even going to go there. It's not my scope of practice. We all need them. I know I take mine, but as well, I think it's really important to try and really tweak what you eat into the things that inside make you shine.
I think that it's become necessary for me, as Wanda pointed out. My whole digestive system has changed in menopause.
Interesting.
And so I also have discovered that I have to eat smaller meals. I particularly have to eat a smaller meal at night and be very careful about what I eat afterwards, because I'll have reflux, I'll be uncomfortable. It might affect my sleep.
That's
so
right.
yeah, I've absolutely, Wanda, I can concur that there's definitely been some necessary changes that have had to have been made.
That's right. I think as well, I don't know about you, but I mean, I know for me, something so simple as having a glass of water before bed has changed things. Before I could have a glass of water at night, and I really am like a camel normally. Yes. But now what I'm finding is if I have one just that little bit too late, I'm now up at night. And do you find anything?
Well, that happened to me last night because, of course, I had a drink of water, closer to bedtime, and I had to get up in the night, which I usually don't anymore. Yeah. And it's interesting because I think through the 30s and the 40s, I was always having to get up in the middle of the night, and it really was every night in my 40s.
Okay.
So again, was that a menopausal symptom? I don't know. But then I think through the change in the lifestyle and the nutrition, and really being careful of when I intake of water more during the day, I don't usually have to get up in the middle of the night anymore.
That's good. And I think that's the other thing as well, is there's hope. We might think, oh, menopause is happening and that's it, I can't do anything. But I think, facing each of these things head on and saying, well, okay, if I'm not sleeping, I'm going to maybe, decrease my caffeine intake, or I'm not going to drink so much late at night, knowing that we can go through this checklist and perhaps there's one thing that could change everything. We just never know.
Or even just a little bit will probably help alleviate certain symptoms as well.
Exactly.
So
you're right.
In order to be able to help you feel better, your mood better, and just feel better about yourself.
Exactly. which sort of leads me into the next topic of body change. Like our bodies change as we get older too. I mean, I know it's changing all the time, but there are other changes that occur as we go through this time of life. Have you, either of you found, you know, any experience
well, I was
with
going to
either
say,
of that?
it's the weight gain, right?
Yeah.
So the weight gain around the abdomen
Yes.
has kind of been something that I get frustrated with, because no matter what diet changes or exercise I tried, it no changes whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I do find that, but I'm also limited in terms of things that I can do physically as well.
Okay.
So, you know, sometimes I more have to focus more on the nutrition and the diet and being more aware of that end of things rather than the exercise piece.
That's right.
Although I have tried different trainers and those types of things, but depending on what else is going on with my body as to whether I'm able to or not.
That's right.
But yeah, just, but also it was also the big changes in terms of my period, you know, because that was one of the first signals as well. Just, you know, very predictable, controllable to, you know, it would last twice as long. It would be, I don't know, 5 times as heavy.
Yeah.
You don't, like, I have only black pants because I don't dare wear any other color of pants. And if I'm going over to a place that has white couches during my period, I'm a little afraid to sit down.
Yeah. All these things that all of a sudden
Yeah,
we
those
have
little
to
things
think
that you have to
about.
worry about. And that's just it. But you don't want to tell them why.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of like, again, that taboo topic.
Yeah.
Or even just like, for many years, I carried a change of clothes around with me.
Smart.
So, you know, being in the school system, I would supply teaching, I would take a pair, and I would often have to change.
Yeah.
Or there have been places where I've gone to and it's like, I need to go home because I forgot my change of clothes.
Wow.
So, because, you know, you just stand up and it goes whoosh.
Yep. How
So-
this affects how this affects so much. How about you? Have you found when it comes to body changes, if there's anything significant that's happened or?
Yeah, I found that my joints ached a lot more, and initially I was concerned, but then through some research and through sort of tracking it myself, so I got to a point where I had to track the different symptoms, and then I was able to see, okay, yeah, they seem to be correlated to other symptoms that are happening around that time. But I'm finding now that mobility is a big issue for me, where it never used to be in my 30s. So you and I have known each other for a million years through teaching.
Aren't we good for a million?
Yes.
We look good.
Through fitness, right? So
That's right.
you and I could teach several classes a day and not even think about it. But now I stiffen up so much more. So I have to make sure that my fitness routine, or my regimen, my weekly regimen, includes the weights, the cardiovascular, but also some mobility work.
That's right.
Because my hips are a lot stiffer, and so you know, we used to just not think about this stuff. And
That's very, very
now-
true.
And I was just going to say the balance too.
Right, yes.
Right? So it all kind of, I'm sure it's all related.
That's, oh, it is.
So,
it is.
you know, just the fact that you really do have to work on your balance in terms of being able to do the different movements.
That's right.
You know, on one foot or the other foot, or
You girls are good because you're going into next week's episode. So we're going to hold those conversations for next time. But that you're absolutely right. You are good. But it doesn't it prove how everything is so interconnected? Whether it's our mind, whether it's what we're eating and taking in and helping ourselves that way to how we move. I mean, there's so many things. So again, another really great conversation with both of you, where we could probably sit here all afternoon and evening and talk about it. But thank you so much for your input. Again, I'm really hoping there's somebody watching that's saying, oh, never thought of that, or that's me. So thank you so much again.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Dan Mailer. I'm the host of London Lights, the show where we talk about notable Londoners who have made a big mark, big impact on the world of music, entertainment, sports, politics. Today our guest is Jonathan Hollow, Yuri Poole of the McCartney years, the one and only Jim Chapman, Peter Brennan of Jeans and Classics fame. London Lights, Thursday at 8:30.
When we turn a blind eye to racism, we turn a blind eye to ourselves. As Canadians, we disavow all forms of racism. Built on a foundation of cultural acceptance, we choose inclusion, promote equality, and celebrate diversity. Choose health, not hate.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Mario Elia, and I'm the host of a new show here on Rogers TV that we're calling Keeping London Healthy with Dr. Mario. I'm a local family physician here in London, and I'm very excited to be working with Rogers TV on this new format, which will give us an opportunity to explore all sorts of topics related to medicine and health. So tune in Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. We'll see you then.
I'm Shannon Woolley, host of Batter Up Beachville on Rogers TV. Join myself and Doug Harris as we learn more about the first recorded baseball game in Beachville. Watch it on Rogers Cable, rogerstv.com. Thanks for watching.
So, we got to finish the show with a little sparkle of wisdom. So I want to recap some foods that it's really important to have in your pantry and in your fridge, especially as you age, because they nourish our brain, our mind, our body, and our soul. They are whole foods, whole grains, dairy, whatever that looks like for you, as well as fruits and vegetables. Can't get enough of those. Phytoestrogens, healthy fats, and that's, you know, omega-3s especially, and lastly, quality protein. So, speak with someone, start there, and you're really, hopefully, going to be helping yourself as you go through this journey. So that's it for this week's episode. There's been some really incredible information from Tela, and I'm sure there will be more. If you have any questions as a result of this episode, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself at info@coachcarolyn.ca. There will also be on the Rogers site, there will be a link for our private Facebook page. It is a private page called The Modern Woman's Menopause. We'd love to see you join, and there will be much more offered there in the future with regard to nutrition and many other topics. So thank you so much for being here. Do reach out if you have any questions, and we hope to see you next time.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Monday nights, a winner with Optimus TV Bingo on Rogers TV. With a weekly prize board of $3,000, the money raised funds projects to help the youth in our community. You can pick up your cards at over 90 locations across London, and for only $2, you get 6 chances to win. Watch, play, and win every Monday night at 8 p.m. with Optimus TV Bingo on Rogers TV, or streamed live at rogerstv.com.
Hi everyone, my name's Ranger M, and I work at Catfish Creek Conservation Authority. I'm the community outreach technician, and that means I do a lot of this, chatting about all things nature and conservation with kids, adults, teachers, everyone. I love to knowledge share, and that's just what I'm going to do with you. So come on, let's go learn with Ranger M.
watching hockey just got a power play with NHL Center Ice and Super Sports Pack. With up to 37 out-of-market NHL games a week, you'll always catch your favorite team no matter where you live. Whether it's big matchups you're looking for or following your top fantasy picks, it's all here. NHL Center Ice, part of the Rogers Super Sports Pack. All this for only $35.95 a month. Order through your remote on Channel 450 or call 1-888-ROGERS-1 today.
You're watching Rogers TV, London.
Welcome to the first episode of LDN ONT TV here on Rogers TV. I once again am your host, Rona Morgan, and it is a pleasure to be speaking to you again. First show of our new season on September 30th. It is the first official National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, and I have two fascinating guests to speak